What's going on, y'all? Every day means every day, episode number 19. And in today's video, I just want to walk you through step by step the blueprint that I followed to go from 0 to 6 figures in income in my early 20s and then go on to achieve multiple 6 figures in income by my mid to late 20s. Now, I'm only 27 years old, so I've got a little bit of time before my 20s run out, but I wanted to make this video because I know that 6 figures is a goal that a lot of people have, despite the fact that everybody on the internet makes it seem like if you're not driving a Lamborghini by the time you're 7 years old, then something's detrimentally wrong with you, which is just asinine. But I wanted to make this video moreover because there's so many people on the internet right now who are teaching things like this, who are showing people how to get rich, how to become successful, and they haven't actually done it themselves, barring maybe the fact that they sold some kind of a course to teach people how to get rich, and that's how they got rich. It's this circular logic of, yeah, I'm going to teach you how to make 6 figures or 7 figures or whatever, but I made my money by teaching you how to do it before I actually did it independently of teaching other people how to do it. It's like the most ridiculous scam that I've ever seen, but so many people fall for it. And I really want this video to break the mold of that because, and this is not a self-glorifying thing, but I actually did it. And I'm not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not somebody who has a traditional high-paying job. I kind of did it my own way. I did it in a very entrepreneurial, independent way, but I did it following some principles that you or anybody else can follow and achieve similar results. So with that being said, how did I actually do it? Because by the way, I feel like it's almost my responsibility and obligation to make videos like this, especially when there's so much trash out here on the internet that's just not good, solid information. Because as a peak performance coach, as a motivational speaker, it is my obligation to share the earned wisdom that I've accumulated. And by earned wisdom, what I mean is I've learned a lot of things the hard way because I've just walked that life path, but I want to be able to give you the life lessons without you going through the same trials and tribulations that I went through to have to learn those lessons. And I think that's what any good coach, speaker, trainer, mentor, that's what they're supposed to do. So that's the purpose of this video. Now, let's just get straight into the story, okay? How did I actually achieve it? Well, I started from basically nothing, 900 square foot house in East Limestone County, Alabama, born to a single mother. We did not grow up with a lot. My first job, I was 14 years old, and I was actually the janitor for a gymnastics camp not far from where I am here in downtown Nashville, Tennessee. It's in Crossville, Tennessee. And I was cleaning toilets and sweeping floors, mopping floors, cleaning the dishes. And that was my first job. And I wasn't even paid for that, by the way. I was just getting free tuition at the camp in exchange for doing all that work. That was the first thing that I did. But that opportunity allowed me to meet people that were of a different status, of a different caliber. So at that camp, and by the way, this is why you should never sleep on free opportunities, because money is not the only way to get paid. You can absolutely get paid in opportunities. And quite frankly, that can be worth way, way more than a dollar amount. I mean, imagine if I had said, hey guys, I'm not willing to do this for free. I'm only going to do it if you pay me 10 bucks an hour. It's like, okay, cool. You could drive a hard bargain. You could try and negotiate. You could do that, but you're not going to make a whole lot of money doing that type of work. And you risk losing the opportunity to connect with people who are of a very high level. So the risk reward doesn't make any sense at all. So by being at this camp for free, I was able to connect with a guy named Brandon Wynn. Okay. And people always used to make fun of us. It was Brandon squared because he was about 7 or 8 years older than me. We look exactly the same, dark hair, jacked. Like we were both ring specialists. I went to Michigan. He went to Ohio State. We're like super, super similar. It's almost creepy. But I met this guy when I was probably 15 years old, 16 years old. I said, man, I really want to get into the online coaching space. And I knew that that's what he did. He did online personal training, online coaching. And I was just telling him about how coaching was the only thing I'd ever done. You know, yeah, I'm a janitor at this camp right now, but back home, I coach gymnastics at my home gym and I really love it. It seems like that's something that I'm good at. And I'm really interested in doing online coaching as a way of making a bunch of money and becoming successful. And he said, well, I got an idea for you. When you get to college, why don't you come work for me? Fast forward a couple of years, I get to the University of Michigan, and I end up working for Brandon Wynn online as the head coach of his community. Here's another thing that people greatly undervalue. They undervalue unpaid opportunities that will just give you exposure to the networking, the people that you need to know. B, they undervalue low paid opportunities that will give you the opportunity to learn. Okay, I was only making 11 or 12 bucks an hour when I was working for Brandon Wynn, but he was a guy who was making multiple tens of thousands of dollars a month doing what I wanted to do. So A, I had the self-awareness. I knew what I wanted to do. But B, I was literally getting paid to learn. It's the craziest thing. Everybody's like, go start a business, be an entrepreneur. And I don't disagree with that, but you need to be prepared for that. And the best way to learn entrepreneurial skills is to go work for an entrepreneur. Go work in a startup. Go work in a small business. Go work in the industry that you want to be in one day. And go learn from these people firsthand while you get paid to do it. It's a phenomenal opportunity, and way too many people sleep on that. All right. So I ended up getting close to this guy. I'm getting paid, like I said, 11, 12 bucks an hour, but I'm learning the skill sets that I did not yet have. I'm learning the marketing behind it. I'm learning the business development, the structure of client acquisition. I'm learning how he did what he did. All the while, I'm stress testing my own skill sets because, quite frankly, I'd coached gymnastics at a low level, but I didn't know how that skill set transferred into life coaching, personal training, business coaching at a higher level. And so he gave me the opportunity to learn and stress test my skills using his reputation, putting his reputation on the line, his community on the line. So there's very little risk for me. The worst that can happen to me is I get fired, right? But the best that can happen is I learn these new skill sets and gain my own reputation, build myself up while not really putting myself at risk. It was a beautiful opportunity. Not enough people do that. From there, I ended up connecting with a guy named Eric Thomas, E.T. the Hip Hop Preacher, #1 motivational speaker in the world. I first started paying. I was a paid client. I paid for a coaching session, ended up getting close with him, volunteering at all of his events from that point forward. And that got me, again, close to people who were doing things at an even bigger level. So now I went from learning from a millionaire to learning from a multi-millionaire, right? An 8-figure guy who was doing similar work to what I wanted to do. Now, mind you, I never wanted to be a motivational speaker. That's what ended up transpiring, but I never wanted that from the outset. I just saw somebody who was aligned with my values and who was doing something similar to what I wanted to accomplish. I knew he was doing online coaching, masterminding, events. That part I wanted to do. The stage stuff I didn't necessarily want back at that time in my life, but he was close enough. He was doing it in a way that was ethical, that was moral, and he was very successful at it. He was helping a lot of people. I said, I want to learn from this guy. So again, started volunteering at all of his events. I got closer and closer to him. At one point, I'm not going to go deep into the story because I talk about this in other videos on the channel, but at one point, I literally chased him down in a parking lot right before I was about to graduate from college and asked him for an internship, for an opportunity. He gave me an unpaid internship. So watch the flow of events here. I went from working for free in exchange for networking opportunities and gaining skills to a low paid opportunity that allowed me to learn on the job to gain more skill sets, back down to an unpaid opportunity, but at a higher level, learning from somebody who was doing it at one of the most elite levels of anybody in the world, right? I worked for ET for free for 6 months, and then he offered me a full-time job making $50,000 a year, which, by the way, I had to turn down a job offer for more than that, for $60K a year, coaching gymnastics in Houston from the guy who was the head coach of the United States Olympic team for the past 12 years in a row. I had to turn that down, take a massive risk to even do the unpaid internship, and then once it finally turned into something, it was a pay cut. I went down to $50K a year, all right? So again, I'm really betting on myself this entire process. I'm risking what I have in the effort of learning more from people who are where I want to be. This is the process that most people don't do because, like Gary Vee always talks about, you want the $80,000, $90,000 job offer right out of college. You want to make use of that degree. You want to drive the BMW so all your friends are jealous. And it's a short-term payoff. It doesn't work very well in the long run. Now, if it's a job where you're really learning those skills that I was talking about earlier, you're getting paid to learn, paid to network, that's one thing. But if you don't see long-term potential and you don't see how it's building you up to what you want to become long-term, and you're just doing it for a paycheck, I promise you it is never, ever going to be worth it. You will lose in the long run if that's the route that you take. So I end up working for ET, $50K a year, doing administrative work. And I hated it. I'll be completely honest with you. I hated it. Doing all the spreadsheets, the accounting, None of that was what I was genuinely into. Remember, I was a coach my entire life. Started coaching gymnastics when I was 14, 15. Then I was a janitor at a gymnastics camp coaching in my spare time. Then I was the head coach of Brandon Wynn's community. Like, all I'd ever done was coach. That's what I wanted to do. And now I find myself doing spreadsheets, administrative work, customer service, etc. But I stuck around again because of what I was learning behind the scenes, because I got to see from a first person perspective what the coaching industry looked like from the absolute top down. Like, ET is one of the best of the best, got one of the biggest businesses in the industry. And I got to see how they structured their offers. I got to see the headlines on their ads. I got to see the copywriting on their emails, and I was paying attention. I was studying. So what happened was, after I was working in this capacity for a couple of years, I started demonstrating other skill sets. I started picking up on what they were doing. All of a sudden, they said, oh, this guy writes emails better than our other copywriter. This guy can speak better than some of our other hosts and speakers. This guy is better at sales than some of our actual sales guys, because he's been learning, he's been studying, he's been supplementing what he's learning on the job with YouTube, with self-education, with all these other things. This kid's got the work ethic. This kid's learning. This kid's figuring it out. They said, why don't we give him an opportunity? ET came to me one day, said, I want you to be my agent, and I'm going to give you a commission on everything that you sell. That was what put me over the edge. I was 24 years old at the time. I was making a mid-range 5-figure salary, right? I'd gone up from the 50K earlier, but I was making a mid-range 5-figure salary from my day-to-day operations work. And then I was making a commission that put me in another mid-range 5-figure salary from the commissions that I was earning from being ET's agent. Combine those two together, all of a sudden I'm in the mid-6 figures as a 24-year-old kid. So how can you reverse engineer this process? Because again, it's not super glamorous. I didn't start my own business when I was in my early 20s. I wasn't, blowing up on social media. I wasn't this viral sensation. All the things that people trick you into thinking that you need to make that amount of money when you're in your early 20s. I didn't have those. I just steadily built these entrepreneurial skill sets until I became valuable enough to somebody else that they were willing to pay me 6 figures for the work that I was doing for them. Right? So I got a little list here in front of me, some notes that I took that can break down this process for you. Number one, step one, if you're starting from absolute zero, become the right person. Okay. You have to build the right habits. You have to build the right you in order to be valuable for anybody else. At the end of the day, making money is about providing value to other people. Other people have to pay you money. You can't print money out of thin air. You're not the Federal Reserve. Okay. People have to decide to pay you money. The way that that happens is you become valuable. How do you become valuable? Step number one, you have to be the right person. You have to be disciplined. You have to have good habits. You have to have good routines. All the things that I talk about in my Everyday Means Everyday community. By the way, go check out everydaymeanseveryday.com. That is what builds you into the person who's capable of taking these opportunities and capitalizing on them. Because there's other people who are in ET's ecosystem who never made it out, who never did anything big after that because they were just riding the steady paycheck. They weren't building their skill sets with the mentality of long term, I'm going to take this and run with it and build my own thing. But you have to be the right person for that. You have to be dedicated. You have to be disciplined. And those are skill sets that you build outside of the job for the most part. You got to work on you first and foremost. Number two, you got to get yourself in the right environment. If you're hanging out with a bunch of other janitors, if you're hanging out with a bunch of other trash people, if you're hanging out, and I don't mean trash people, I mean people collecting garbage, right? Like garbage man type people. Not that there's anything wrong with that. If that's where you're starting, that's where you're starting. But you have to make a conscious and intentional effort to get into a new social circle, into a new group of people who are doing things at a higher level. I was making 50 grand a year sitting there at the lunch table with ET and all these other people who are making millions and millions of dollars. I distinctly remember I went to a lunch one time in Columbus, Ohio, and ET was talking about how he was about to start charging 200 grand per keynote. And then another former NFL QB was talking about how he was building schools and churches in foreign countries. And then one of our other guys that was at the table, who is one of ET's business advisors, talked about how he had raised $50 million for starting other businesses. He was a capital raiser. And I was just like, man, I feel so small at this table. And I feel so blessed because I'm learning from people who are doing way bigger and way more than I was at that time. You've got to get yourself in the right environment, whether you pay to play, whether you volunteer. I did both of those, by the way. I paid to play at first, and then I started volunteering at events, working for free. No matter how you have to do it, you've got to get yourself in the presence of other people who are doing things at a very high level because it changes the expectation that you have of yourself. Okay. Exposure changes expectations. Once you get exposed to people that are doing things at that high of a level, it completely changes the way that you take action, the way that you see yourself, the way that you see the opportunities and the possibilities that are coming your way in your life. So no matter what it takes, get in the right environment. Number 3, learn the skills and demonstrate them. Okay. Hormozy talks about this a lot. Entrepreneurship is not a game of one skill set. Like, oh, I learned how to sell, and now all of a sudden I'm going to be a bajillionaire. No. You learn multiple skill sets as you progress through the game. So maybe step 1 for you is sales. Step 2 might be branding. Step 3 might be business development and offer structure. Step 4 might be speaking in public. Step 5, like there's a million different things you have to learn. I mean, literally there's 100 different skill sets that go into building your own business and becoming an entrepreneur, becoming successful. You have to learn these things one step at a time. But where the value is created is when you demonstrate those skills. Again, when I first started making 6 figures, I had not started my own business yet. I was not in business for myself. I was still working for one guy who was of a high net worth. And when I started demonstrating my skill sets and how I could be valuable to him, he started paying me in proportion to the value that I provided. So if you build the skill sets, you don't have to go do this crazy rags to riches story, not off rip at least, in order to be very successful. So build the skill sets and then demonstrate them and how they can add value to people who have a lot of money, and they will pay you in proportion to the value that you provide. Step 4, this is a bonus. Take those same skill sets. Once you do step 3, take the same skill sets and then begin leveraging them for yourself rather than for other people. So once I learned how to sell on behalf of ET, I started selling on behalf of myself. Once I learned how to do product development on behalf of ET, I started doing product development for myself. And this is how you build up your own thing, your own business. So if I had to recap this entire video in a brief time span here, what I would encourage anybody to do is, number 1, get the exposure. Just start. Get around people who are doing what you want to do by any means necessary. I don't care what it takes. You've got to get in the room, because the exposure will elevate expectations and it will teach you what's actually working in today's market. So many of these guys that are selling courses, they're showing you what worked 10 years ago. If you get around people who are doing it today, you get real-time information, and that points you in the right direction of, oh, this is the skill set I need to develop. This is the thing that I need to learn. And you might be way off on that if you don't actually get that firsthand experience. So number 1, get in the room. Okay. Number 2, I want you to become the person who takes those skill sets and acts on them. Do not be the kind of person who learns, reads all the books, watches all the YouTube videos, and you never take any action. This is why, again, every day means every day. We're critically focused on the habits, the routines, and the person that you become in every aspect of your life, because that ability to take something that you've learned and take action on it, that's what really is the X factor. That's what makes all the difference in the world. Step 3, you take those skill sets that you're taking action on, you leverage them to be useful and helpful to somebody who is of high net worth, or you take them and leverage them for the mass market and you create your own business out of it, or you do one and then the other, which is what I did. Okay. So again, this is not super sexy. This is not some crazy, like, yeah, you got to build the next Amazon while you're in college type of story. I literally just found really, really good mentors. I got in the right environment. I became valuable to those mentors, to those people of high net worth. And then I took the skill sets that I learned working for them and began starting my own companies from that. Okay. That's what by the way, I earned 6 figures just working for other people, being valuable to them. It was the multi 6 figures that came from building my own companies and organizations using those same skill sets. So with that being said, I hope that this video was valuable for you. I hope you get something from it. And I hope that you can take this framework and execute it in your life, because I promise you this, you do not have to be special. You do not have to have some kind of crazy talent in order to become successful at a young age. You just have to build the skill sets. You have to leverage them effectively. You have to take action. You have to believe in yourself enough to take action. And I'm telling you, if you just do those things, if you become the right person who's willing to go all in on themselves, you can create a massive level of success at a young age and use it as a foundation and a springboard into a whole other level of success later on in your life. So I hope that this was helpful. This was a real world account. This is not some fluff made up framework for people who have never actually done it. I hope this was helpful. If it was, make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Don't forget, every day means every day.